All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome once again to this episode of Breakfast with Data. Uh, this our deep dive with DataFrame series. We've touched about um, we've touched like nine different topics, deep diving into what data frames are in Pandas and PySpark, and so many other. We've touched a lot of topics around how you inspect data frames, aggregate data frames, and do a lot of things in data frame group by how do you join data frames and the basic tools and skills that you will need when you're working with data frame. Now, today we are going to talk about the skills that outlast these libraries. Pandas is a Python library. PySpark is also a Python library, and there are skills and um, opportunities that outlast some of these. Like a new data frame library will come out. In fact, there are already some that you probably haven't heard of. There is koalas, which is just like pandas. Different new database, data frame, DocDB, different constructs around the idea of tabular data, structuring data, because machine does like structured data and most data is unstructured, right? So in business, for most analytics system, they're going to need um, structured data. What are those things that you put in place beyond just working with data frame, beyond data wrangling, and all the other things that we do? What are those what are those things that you need to possess that outlast a data frame? And that's what we're going to be looking at in today's class. Excuse me. Okay. So without uh taking things further, let's look at. I mean, it's one thing to write, uh, to be able to read a data frame critically, especially when you are doing transformation. One of those things that we've done in this series is to show you how a data frame is supposed to look, inspecting and stuff like that. But there are some um, key steps or key decisions that you want to take beyond just inspecting and stuff like that. There are certain things that you should ask. There are some questions you should ask yourself uh, during any transformation before you even write the code for any data frame. You all know data frames come in rows and columns, and this one will outlive any library. It doesn't matter the library that you are dealing with, even if it's SQL that you are trying to write. Maybe it's a store procedure or something. In fact, today we will discuss when you are supposed to not use Python, not try to use pandas data frame, not try to use PySpark. There are some times that it's just good to just go and do this thing in SQL, and we'll reason out those period. I mean, in 2015, 2016, I don't think there was anything. Uh, I mean, anybody in our own ecosystem that was using PySpark. In fact, I was just hearing about distributed computing myself around that particular time, trying to understand what it was, right? And pandas, who knows if it exists? I mean, how recent the exciting pandas is probably older than PySpark because some of these constructs, but I may be wrong. But what I'm just saying is that in our own ecosystem, and I'm talking about the Nigerian data space, or the Nigerian data community, uh, when Databricks, Spark, Hadoop started becoming, I mean, it's in the 2018, 2019, around 2020, that this library started gaining popularity, and you have more and more people using them as a result of that. So when you are doing a transformation, right? And what is transformation? For let's first import our uh import pandas like we always do as PD, right? And here we can have enrollment. Let's bring in most of our data frame. Enrollments is equal to, by now you should be able to, um, if they wake you up in your sleep, you should be able to do this read underscore CSV. Now, what may confuse you, and I need to tell you this one, especially when you are working in either of pandas, or maybe you're working in both pandas and Spark, is that you might be mixing up some of the syntax every now and then. It happens to all of us. Let me just put it that way, so that you know that don't worry yourself too much about it. You will figure it out. These days, we are not teaching for syntax, but more of the teaching should is actually going towards concept understanding, what we are trying to do. And we can see, I mean, there are some of these things that we wrote here. So let's look at this enrollment.csv. Yes, this is the one that we need. I mean, we could copy the packet to, then we will do pd.read packet instead of pd.read CSV. So I'm going to pass this in, and I'm going to have the students let's equal to pd dot read CSV, and I'm going to pass in the same. I'm just passing this, and we should have, yeah, instead of enrollment, I'm just going to, because I know this, in fact I can copy all of this. Let's do grades. We have the grades table, right? Yeah, courses, grades. Okay, let's do grades. Let's go to pd dot read CSV, and we can paste this guy now. Now if I run this now, I should be able to run this and not get any error. What is going on? The server is not waking up. Okay, let's refresh our Databricks. So because again, you might write what I'm trying to, interesting. This is not even grades did not even make it. Let's go to pd dot read CSV instead of enrollments. We are just going to say grades here. Now the server is started, and we have everything. Now you could just say display anyone. Let's display enrollment. Uh, enroll enrollments dot sample, and let's say we took a sample of 5 from this our enrollment table. Now when you are doing transformation, there are different kinds of transformation that you can be doing. You might be joining, you might be maybe standardizing, maybe correcting things, all sort of data wrangling actions that you can do. The first question you should always ask yourself is, what will the output look like? Right? Especially when you are doing aggregation. Will I get more if I say, um, let's say, let's say, um, let's say, I have, uh, let's say I have, this enrollment now. Enrollment have course code, right? Let's say I want to count how many students are enrolled in a particular course. I can say, um, um, enrollment, right, by courses, right? And I can set that equal to, I can set it equal to enrollment. Let me just copy this so that, right? Dot, I can say group by. Of course, I will do group by, right? And let's say we are doing it by course code. Course code, and I will need to pass this in a string. Then I might pass the aggregate function, but let's see, I want the ag, and I can do count, right? And this way I can then display enrollment by courses. But what I'm trying to say is that before you write this, now let me ask a question now. This is a time for you to unmute. If I have, let's say I have, how many courses? Let's say I have 10 unique courses, right? How many rows do you think this my enrollment, this thing will have? I will mention Nemo because of time. We are doing live recording. Okay. So if I've written this now. We are grouping enrollment by course code, right? Suppose I have 20, this row, this in fact, instead of doing samples, let's do all the entire data frame. The entire data frame, I think, is about 202, right? 202. But of that 202, you can see CS, this is enrollment. Every student that did enroll on this, we have the student ID and the course they did enroll in. Right? What I'm saying is, if I have 20 courses across the 202. You understand? And I run this query that I'm writing now, right? How many rows do you think I will have? Enrollment by courses. Look at that query. Did you get it, Temi?
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Like how many
r-
codes we have in the table?
are you asking that one again, or
For that,
I'm saying how many rows are we going to have on this table that I just created? This new table now, this new data frame,
it is the distinct amount of course code that we have. Like,
which
uh, I don't know the count.
is 20, right? I mean, I'm just suggesting that it's 20, right? Whatever it is what, and you are correct, right? So, and you must always envisage that. You must always know that. Look, this is the amount of this thing, and how many columns am I going to have?
2 columns.
Thank you. So if I run this now, you should be able to see the enrollment ID. Now this is coming. I did not pick a subset of. Now this is interesting. Can you see that this my code did not really behave the way you were expecting it, right? Because when we are grouping by course code and we pass this our aggregate, we just said it should do a count on everything. Now this is going to count every single this thing. What we should have done here is to pass in the column that is going to count, right? So that it knows to say, okay, I'm counting what is it called, course code, right? And we are counting course code by I think it's course code that we need. Course code, right? Course code. Let's see what this gives us, because we can also count based on different can you see now that we have this just one column that is our course code? There is a lot of different ways that you can do that you can work around this thing, your data frames. But the most important thing we can now do, let's see, uh, we can take subsets of different data frame depending on however we want it. John, your hand is up.
Mr. Good morning. Now, what I want to ask is for this course code now, it's giving 22, 17, 18. How are we now going to know the exact course code? As for instance, I think this 22 should be, let's say, for FTU 004. Maybe it noticed that on that row column it appeared 22 times. If I'm right, is that it?
Yes, 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 yes.
Now it's only showing the count. It's not showing the exact course that is 22.
Just 1 minute. Yes, yes, yes. You are actually correct. Just a minute. Um, and we are going to do that in our, and this is because, and you are correct actually. Now this should probably be an alias of the count. You understand? And how do we do that? There is a way we can write this and see and I'm looking at Because if we reset index, that will make things a little bit okay. Dot group by dot. Let's try dot instead of using this aggregate function. Just a minute. Dot size. I don't want to use source script. Dot size. And we can say reset index. Set reset index. And we go in name. No, we don't even need to reset index. Why should we reset index? Index will show if we transfer this back. Dot value count. Let's do dot value count instead. Instead of dot size that is returning a pandas series. Let's do dot by course code count, enrollment count. Let's do dot value count. Dot value count is not a. Is it dot value underscore counts? Value counts. It should be value counts. And it should not have group by. Instead, it should actually be. Let's see. This could go this way. So value count can do this and say the course underscore code. And if we display this now, it's still returning a pandas series. Value count will bring a pandas series. If I want a data frame, can pass in multiple columns, and that will be. But does this help you, John? Right? So we see DS 303 24, SQL 101 23, and so on. Now, again, it is very, very important that you can foresee or anticipate what you are going to get. What will there be a drop? One of the things that we want to look at is if you are transforming a particular data frame or groups of data frame, you want to ask yourself, will I lose more rows or will I gain more rows? Another thing that you can do is to, beyond any data frame or any framework that you are using, is to try and see how you can write your own validation scripts. You understand? In SQL, in Python, for example, let's try and write a simple validation function. So I will do def validate, right? This will be a function that will take a data frame, df, and it will take some of my expectations. Some of you that have worked with maybe great expectation or something, right? You'll be able to see, you will know some of this thing, and I will say expectation. So this is a very good thing, because suppose we have um let's say we have we have uh 500 rows in a particular data frame. You understand? Or we are doing something. I can say minimum number of row. My expectation is that I should have 200, right? Or I should have 500. If I get maybe 150, I know something is wrong, right? Or if I can say maybe some tables should have null, and I'm going to pass that in as a dictionary, which this thing will check expectation, and I can say name. I can just set it to be equal to default what that validation this thing is, and I can then go here and say let's have error list. So this will go through my data frame, and any number of errors that it sees is going to append it to this particular listing if there is error. First of all, I can do a let me even make comment here and say min row check. And this one is just a simple row count, and I can just say if if um, min underscore rows, and I have to list this as a value of one of my this thing in expectation, right? In expectation let me just make sure that it's spelled the same way, otherwise we'll get an error, right? I will say n is equal to length of that df, right? Remember, length df will give us the number of rows in a particular data frame, right? I can then say if, right, n is less than the what I'm expectation, and I'll pass in the key expectation. You know that in that expectations, right, it's going to be a dictionary of keyword, right? So the key will be min rows, right? Same min row. And I'm going to say if it is less, that means there is error, right? If I will just say error errors dot this our error, or I should even call it errors dot append I can just add the I can say let's add an f string and say expected. Let me add an f string here like this. Expected um, mm, mm, expected at least. I'm saying I'm expecting at least, and I'll pass the expectation. What is the expectation? I will say expectations, expected, at least expectation, and I'll pass in this thing, mean number of rows, right? At least this number of rows is expected, right? expected so number of rows, and got n number, right? This is one this thing to check. We can also check, let's just check for two things so that it makes a little bit of sense. I can say if let's do a null count. Let's just do hashtag null count check, and let's do it per column, right? So I can say if no, let's say no null, that's the expectation key, right? That there are certain tables, maybe like ID or something, customer ID, or this thing that we are going to pass in the list, right? And I'm going to say in expectation, let's also make sure I'm copying this very well, and I'm going to say for column name, right, in expectations, I think I copied it, no nulls, right? In expectation of no null, these are good validation scripts that you are expecting that there should be no null in a particular column. I can say n null should be equal to the data frame df, right? Df, and I will pass in the column name, right? And it will be dot is null dot sum. Now, if it is greater than 0, that means this one has null. I want it to throw error. If n null is greater than 0, I will say errors dot append. This our errors dictionary. Mafi, your head is aching you. Why? Append. This is not it's not too. This will be errors dot append. I will do an F string here. Why is it errors? I think I'm spelling it wrong. Okay. Yep. And I will do an F string here. And it will be similar to what we've written before. Can do F string and say the column. Can do column. Don't worry, when I test this function, you guys will see that it doesn't, it's not bad at all. But let me do the F string to be double column. Can now say column And I'll pass in the column name, same column name that we got from the expectation of no null. So there are some columns that we expect in this our data frame that they should not be null, right? No null, as null, as null, as the number of null, and null, and null, right? Nulls. We were expected. There is a library. There is a full Python library that is designed for this thing, and guess the name of the library? Great Expectation. So when you are doing data quality and validation, and you want to have validation gates around your data, you will use that. Finally, what we are going to do, we are going to say if error, that's like if anything in error, if errors. So if there is any value inside this guy, I'm going to raise an assertion error. Assertion error, right? And here I'm just going to do an f string, right? And I'm going to print the name. I'm going to say name, right? And we are going to validation field, field, right? And I can even go to the next line and have it start with. Now this is just string and this thing now. And I can do plus another escape and hyphen, right? And then I can do dot join the errors. Good. Now, otherwise, else, say, can just print something around our expectation being met. You can say print. Can do the same f name and say f string, do an f string and do a name, can then do len df or something, or let's say expectation passed. Now, how do we test this? Let's test this on our enrollment, right? And we are going to use the apply. Let's see we want, let's run this now, right? Let's say I want to validate my enrollment, and I need, so I can say validate. Remember, validate, we take validate, right? And I'll pass in the data frame we have here, which is our enrollment data frame, which is the first argument that my validate is going to take. I can say enrollment, that's the data frame, right? Then the next this thing that is going to take will be the data frame of, or I said the data frame, the what is it called, the dictionary. Remember, the two stuff that we put here, mean row, are the keys, right? So we'll say mean row, right? And let's say I'm expecting, in this particular case, let's say minimum number of row, I'm expecting, say 200 or 50, depending on the case, as the case may be. And we will try and struggle this to see when, so that we see that those errors are coming out. And I can say, in fact, let me do this. Let's do this so that, in fact, let's have this to make it cleaner. And then we say no nulls. So the columns we don't want nulls on, we are going to pass those ones in as a list. You can do tuple if you so desire. We can say no nulls. I'm going to just copy it from here. And I'm going to pass in the list of columns that I'm not expecting nulls from. And that would be, let's say, enrollment ID, can anything ID, and I can pick that, look at it, enrollment ID and student ID, and maybe enrollment date, right? Actually, in this thing, nothing is null. I can say enrollment ID, right? Then I can say student ID, and we can now do enrollment dates. Enrollment dates. Those are the three columns that, I mean, again, in your real life scenario, it might be customer ID, it might be account number, it might be NIN, and you can also add more validation steps here. Maybe NIN must be unique. You can look for a unique range. Yeah. In fact, you can set, like, you do a unique, if you have unique values in this thing. If you don't have, if they are not unique, you can come and test it here, and that will, you can check for duplicates and stuff. You can also have things like range. For example, maybe state and capital, or state code, or course code, where people are entering the number. You know, there must only be between, maybe gender can only be male, female, others. Title can only be Mr., Mrs., Miss. You understand, all those kind of, anything outside of the range or not spelled the same way, your validation, this thing should throw error, that this guy does not did not validate properly. Remember that there is a default this thing called name, so that we can give the error this thing, we can put name, which is a keyword argument, and set it equal to let's just say enrollment raw. Alright, let's run this now. We should pass all of our expectations. We did not even get to function object has no sum. Where did I do sum? Is null. Okay, dot sum. Is null is actually a method, not an attribute. So if I run this now, we shouldn't get an error. So enrollment raw, that expectation pass. In fact, this does not even need this. So it might be your data set, might be students, kiniko, all the expectation pass. What if we want to make sure that one of these expectations fail? What are we going to do? Why is it taking all this time? Enrollment expectation. If we put this at 1,200, you know that the total number of rows in here is 202. So one of our row count error should actually trigger in this particular case. Assertion, do you see? Validation failed, right? Expected 1,200 rows, but I got 202. Now, what happens when you have some rows that failed in your validation? What should you do? I think that will be a teaser for another series that we'll be doing later. Is it clear? Let me change this to, if I change it to at least 50, this one will pass now. Right? Expectation passed. Any questions so far?
Before we on, my last question because I to you to understand it.
Okay, we should have a session to do review tomorrow, because tomorrow I was thinking maybe we'll jump into another this thing. John, what is your question? I know you have plenty questions.
Temi has spoken through his mouth what I want to say. They have not the words of the oracle.
Okay. So the thing is that when you are doing validation like this, it's always good to write your own. And this is kind of like when you ask real life data engineer pipeline, you are more particular about data quality, you can write this. The good thing about this validate is that you can write it and keep it in a library, right? Validate, you can write a standardized script, and all you just do is you can do dot apply, dot transform, you understand, maybe for date and this thing, you write your own function. It doesn't matter what data frame you are using. Now there are times that you should just go and use SQL, right? There are periods when SQL is just better. Once you start doing things around window pivoting, on pivoting, I like just go and use SQL instead. So if you are doing chain transformation, maybe you are trying to run some recursive queries, some complex window frames, right? SQL is a better thing there. When you need to store repetitive things like this validate, maybe you want to standardize, you are going through loops, conditionals, and you are doing functions, please, SQL is a better this thing when your work is a little bit when your transformation is more procedural, right? Than you are trying to just get certain value out, display again. The way you should look at this is not like I am I am deep, I am technical, I'm using Python. SQL is not as hard as Python. That's fallacy. Engineers should not be using SQL. That's fallacy. SQL is for data analyst or for Kinecon DBA. That's another fallacy. You understand? The right tool for the right work at the right time. Always check the green, the rows that I'm getting. Is it what I'm expecting after I've done aggregation? Another thing you should also check is how many rows, how many columns, the shape of your data frame. You should also, the last one that I must not forget is the understand what the cardinality will mean for you, right? Is this, especially when you are doing join, right? Is this when you are joining two data frames, always after any join, always ask what is the cardinality before you start joining. Is this a many to many relationship? Is it a one to many relationship or many to one relationship? Am I going to have less row? Am I going to have more rows after I finish my join? I know we've touched about that in some of the other series. So the next series that we are going into will be how do you do SQL in this age of LLMs, right? Reimagining SQL and the kind of flows, because we are still around the same tabular data concept. Data frames are just behaving like database tables, but they are not really database table. Of course, we are still going to be using Databricks, and we are just going to be using this our SQL editor to be querying tables that we have in the Databricks Unity data catalog. Any question? Okay, in the absence of
The next series is not tomorrow, right? Like next time, right? Because we're not done with this one.
we will not record that one for YouTube.
Okay.
So we'll just have we have the class. You'll be able to answer question. We might even record it just to be a Q&A session and post it. Why not put it on YouTube if it's YouTube worthy anyway?
Okay, sir.
But the next series, I already have it in plan. So if I am going to learn SQL now in these days of LLM, and how will I learn it? How will I teach it? And it's more of an experiment on my side as well to see, because the way we are teaching has to change, right? The things that we are teaching to has to change. I hope and that's clear.
Very clear, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Do have a lovely day ahead. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. And you too, sir.
Thank you.